Hello, class. So today we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting fractions. So here we're going to start off with a pretty simplistic example when we define how to do this, and then I'll give you a concrete example that gets a little bit more complicated. So for our example, we're going to have a over b plus c over b. B being the same number and b not equaling 0, because this is a proper fraction. All we do is add the numerators. We do not add the denominators. And this is going to be our answer. Similarly, we're going to have the same thing when we subtract. A over b minus c over b is going to go to a minus c. We're subtracting the numerators and leaving the denominator the same. This might be confusing. You might wonder why. Well, if you think about it, if you take a circle, let's say we break this up into fourths, and you have, let's say this is cake, you have half of a cake, and your friend has a fourth of a cake. Well, how much cake do you guys have in total? Well, you have 1/2 and 1/4, right? So if you add these two together, you will have to find a common denominator. In this case, it's 4. And you have 2/4. It's the same as 1/2 because you multiply the top and bottom by 2. And you add 1/4 to that. So now you have 3/4. And looking at this graph, right? Looking at this right here, you see that 1 is missing. So you have 1, 2, 3 out of the fourths. So you have 3/4. If you would have added the denominator, you would have gotten 3/8. But by looking at this picture, you can see that this isn't 3/8. This is 3/4. So you conserve the denominator because you don't change the amount of pieces that are cut up. You change the amount of pieces that you have. Okay, so this is why you're always going to just be adding or subtracting the numerators and not the denominators. So I kind of skipped ahead by giving this cake example, but let's go ahead and do another example with subtraction. Okay, so I glossed over this step, but it's important. Let's say we have two fractions. Let's do 3/8, and we want to subtract off 1/4. Okay, these two denominators are not the same. So right now, in their current form, we cannot subtract this. But what can we do? Well, we can change this 4. We can take 1/4. Let's erase this equal sign because I want to talk about this 1/4 for a second. Let's take this 1/4 and let's write it in different form. So let's kind of just do a little wiggly arrow, move it over here, and talk about how we can rewrite that. So 1/4. Well, what can we do to a number? Well, we can multiply it by 1, and we should get the same number, right? So that's still 1/4. Well, let's change this 1 to something else. Let's change this 1 to 2/2, right? We didn't do anything. We just multiplied it by 1 and changed the form of 1. 2/2 is still 1, right? 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we haven't changed anything. But now when we multiply these, remember from multiplying fractions that we multiply the two numerators, so we get 2 on top. And on the bottom, we get 8, right? So now we have 2/8 as our fraction. And if we look back at our problem, we have 3/8 right here. So now if we put 2/8 in for 1/4, we can do the subtraction. And in fact, that's exactly how you do this problem. So you do 3/8 minus 2/8, and that's going to give us 3 minus 2/8, which is equal to 1/8. And that is our answer. So when adding and subtracting fractions, you have to make sure that you get a common denominator first. Then you go ahead and subtract or add the numerators, and then you get your answer. Now your book describes the common denominator right here, what I call right here, the common denominator, just so that way you know the book's definition. They call this equivalent fractions. So let me write that out. Equivalent fractions. So if you ever see in the book the words equivalent fractions, all they're talking about is finding fractions that have the same common denominator. And these are fractions that you can add and multiply by simply add, or sorry, not add and multiply, add and subtract by simply adding or subtracting the numerator. So that's it. That's everything. That is our section on fractions. I hope you understood. I hope I made this clear. And if you have any questions, as always, shoot me an email or ask them in the comments down below. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next time. See you then.